Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our special coverage on the escalating crises in Gaza and Lebanon. I'm Henny Saif. Israeli airstrikes have devastated Gaza, claiming thousands of lives and pushing hospitals to the brink. In Lebanon, intensive attacks are causing displacement, with civilian areas bearing the brunt of conflict.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
A senior security Egyptian source has reported that Hamas is insisting on not fragmenting negotiations due to fears that releasing detainees could lead to renewed Israeli fire. The source has indicated that Egypt continues its efforts with both Palestinian and Israeli parties to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza and facilitate the entry of humanitarian aid. Pardon. It was further noted that Egypt is making intensive efforts to resume stalled negotiations that have been in since July. Meetings between Fatah and Hamas taking place in Cairo through the Community Support Committee are deemed purely Palestinian affairs, according to the source. Highlighted that both Fatah and Hamas have demonstrated increased flexibility and positivity regarding the establishment of the Community Support Committee. Two Lebanese civilians have been killed and others have been injured as Israeli warplanes targeted villages in the Tair and Bin Jbeil districts in southern Lebanon. Israeli airstrikes destroyed a residential block, including public and private services, near the Imam Hussein complex in Tair. Heavy gunfire also targeted the outskirts of Naqura, Jabal al-Labuna and Al-Mashab. Sirens have sounded in northern Israel over areas close to borders with Lebanon. The Israeli occupation forces stated that a number of suspicious aerial targets crossed from Lebanon into northern Israel and that sirens sounded several times. Israeli media have reported that 4 drones were launched from Lebanon towards northern Israel, with only one intercepted by the Israeli occupation army. Sirens echoed across Haifa Bay, Nahariya, Acre, and about 20 towns in the Galilee region, following warnings of suspected aerial intrusions. Reports indicate that one drone hit a factory in Nahariya, northern Israel. The Israeli occupation army has also reported that from Lebanon towards Haifa Bay and the Galilee, with some intercepted while others landed in open areas. Sirens also sounded last night in Tel Aviv and its surroundings as the army noted additional rocket launches from Lebanon. Meanwhile, Israeli police confirmed 19 injuries from a rocket hitting the town of Taira in central Israel. A Turkish humanitarian aid ship carrying approximately 1,000 tons of urgent relief supplies has arrived at the port of Beirut. According to a statement from the Turkish embassy in Lebanon, the mission led by the Hakri Sadaka Association. The shipment aims to assist the Lebanese people who have been facing attacks from Israeli forces for over a month. Israel's public broadcaster has reported that the Israeli occupation army is nearing the end of the first phase of its ground operation in southern Lebanon, which began a month ago. Thousands of occupation army troops and reserve soldiers are expected to be released by the weekend. The broadcaster claimed the operation has achieved significant goals, including uncovering Hezbollah's infrastructure. And joining us today is Professor Rabia Al-Habra, a leading voice in political science from Beirut. Professor Al-Habra, thank you very much for joining us. Now, with the Israeli airstrikes hitting northeastern Lebanon and Beirut, what impact does this escalation have on civilian life, particularly areas like Baalbek Hermel?
Good evening. The air raid executed by the Israeli Air Force has a big influence on the civilians' lives, since there are no shelters in these areas, and most of the areas in Lebanon are not equipped with shelters, and attacking civilians is not something allowed in wars. During the meantime, the Israeli escalation is continued on all the Lebanese areas, and mainly on the Bekaa Valley and the southern suburbs of Beirut, as well on the south. And those who are paying the price are the civilians in these areas. Every day we see, until today, we have around 2,500 killed out of the against civilians in Lebanon.
Sir, now you've to the hardships the civilians are now. Displacement within Lebanon has reached a lot of numbers, with approximately. Now, what are the immediate needs for the displaced families? How is Lebanon managing this sudden humanitarian demand?
Lebanon has difficulties in facing the demand of homes, of shelters, and of mass shelters. The means of Lebanon to face such a crisis are limited. Lebanon is a poor country since the crisis of 2019, the economic crisis in 2019, and we are relying more and more on the international assistance, which are really shy until today. The President Miati, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, have visited UK, have visited Europe, and we had a conference in a summit in Paris to attract and to call for assistance for international assistance. We have got like $1 billion until today. We have received nothing of the international assistance. We have got $100 million from Emirates, and we have got a lot of materialistic assistance, not of financial assistance. Mm-hmm. But we need a lot of things to help people to live inside massive shelters. Now, massive shelters are schools and universities, and they are being put in rented homes or in hazardous homes everywhere in Lebanon, but we need more. We are more in need to help these people to eat, to be able to eat, we are expecting a heavy winter season, and in Lebanon, it is cold, and most of the displaced are residing in Mount Lebanon, which is a cold geographic zone in Lebanon.
Well, sir, other than the international assistance, there have been international discussions regarding the potential for a ceasefire. Now, In your opinion, what role could Lebanon's government, headed by Najib Mikati, play in these negotiations, if any, to achieve sustainable de-escalation?
To say the truth, Lebanon does not have a say in these negotiations. The negotiations are between Hezbollah, which has, they have approved that the one who negotiates is Speaker of Parliament, Nabih Berri, who is fronting Hezbollah and no say. The Lebanese government has approved the execution of 1701, has approved a ceasefire, a quick ceasefire, and sending the Lebanese army to the south to take control of the south. But the negotiations with Israel through the United States or other mediators. Mm-hmm. Until today, we have no ceasefire. There is nothing serious regarding the ceasefire.
Professor Habra, now, Lebanon is already facing a severe economic crisis, as you've mentioned, even before the Israeli ground operation. Now, how do you see the ongoing conflict affecting Lebanon's economy, especially with the increased strain on and infrastructure? Would you say that the international financial assistance would be enough to buoy the Lebanese economy, or is there something more that is still needed?
Lebanon's GDP in 2019 56 to $19 billion in 2024. We were expecting $24 billion in 2025 and 2026. The losses of the war until today are around $20 billion. 6 of them direct, 14 billions were indirect losses. For example, in the electricity sector, energy and electricity sector, the losses were $450 million. In the mobile sector, $76 billion. Lebanon is suffering. Lebanon cannot tolerate anymore these big losses. Lebanon is facing a total economic crash in the coming months. Mm-hmm. So what we expect, a total crash. Lebanon is unable to stabilize the economic situation. Until now, the Lebanese pound is still stable, but until when, no one knows.
Well, given the increased involvement of the United States in the region, now, do you think Lebanon could become a focal point for greater international intervention? What might that mean for Lebanon's future, even after the current conflict?
We need to know how this conflict will end. If it ends up in an international agreement, and we find an agreement which put an end for this war and find a solution for new conflicts, this will be great, and we will see an international intervention to make a peace process in the region. Otherwise, we will stay in wars, and war will continue. American intervention will come clear and will come back to Lebanon after the elections, but few months after the American elections. It's not before February or March 2025. So the solution in Lebanon, this international solution, is postponed until February or March 2025, which means the current crisis will continue for 3-4 coming months, and this will make Lebanon suffer economically and financially, as well on the humanitarian level.
Sir, the recent strikes have also affected Lebanon's healthcare infrastructure. Could you elaborate on the current condition of the hospital medical facilities, especially in areas directly impacted by the bombings? Does the health sector, is it getting enough share of the international assistance?
Until today, we are not getting enough share of the international assistance. Just like 5 to 6 hospitals in the south, they are out of service. In the southern suburbs of Beirut, we have like 2 big hospitals that are almost doing half of their services, and the full capacity of the hospitals are being is on service in areas like Beirut and Mount Lebanon. The first aid activities are done in the south through the Red Cross and other health providers, para-health providers. As well, we are not suffering of a lack of medications and physicians, but the suffer is attacking as well ambulances and health caretakers in the south of Lebanon, as well of hospitals in the south of Lebanon.
Professor, if we look at the political spectrum now, how do you foresee Lebanon's political landscape evolving in the aftermath of this conflict? Could this situation lead to any shifts in alliances or leadership?
I'm afraid of an internal confrontation in the future. Lebanon, it is politically it is divided. Like half of the Lebanese, they do not approve, or maybe more than half of the Lebanese, they didn't approve the support war launched Israel, and the other half is supporting the war which Hezbollah launched against Israel in support of Gaza. I'm afraid of a political confrontation inside the country while we didn't elect yet. Electing a new president for Lebanon is essential at this moment to guarantee the political stability inside the country. What I believe is that a political confrontation we will be having a political confrontation soon in Lebanon, and what I'm afraid of as well is having like Lebanese with UN and international UN resolutions and others against these resolutions. Mm-hmm. So I see that a political dialogue or somehow like a reconciliation regarding what's happening now should take place, keeping in mind that we started seeing kinds of internal like clashes. I don't want to say clashes. Some actions in the streets between Lebanese regarding the current war.
Mm-hmm. Then what message do you believe the Lebanese people want to convey to their own leadership and the international community as a whole at this critical time?
We should find an internal political agreement regarding what is happening, and we should push the international community to support Lebanon on the humanitarian level and to find a solution, a direct ceasefire, a very quick ceasefire on the southern front and regarding the air raids to stop the Israeli aggression against Lebanon. This is on one side, and second, to find a new resolution regarding all the ways how to execute 1701 without changing the 1701 measures for execution. Mm-hmm. To keep the UN peacekeepers activity in the south without changing the way of how to execute their mission.
Mm-hmm. One final question, Professor Al-Habr now. What is your assessment? What are the prospects to achieve peace promptly in the region? Do you see any signs of hope amid this escalating crisis?
Until today, there are no signs of hope. All parties should respect the UN resolutions, the international resolutions. 1701 should be respected by by Israel and should be respected by Hezbollah. All parties should respect the international resolutions. Otherwise, war will continue and no solutions will be available in the near future. At the meantime, we should have a ceasefire. The international bodies and the big states, superpowers, should work on a quick ceasefire in Lebanon. Otherwise, war will continue. We will see more displaced in Lebanon. The humanitarian issue will continue, and Lebanon will have a bigger and much heavier economic and financial crisis. We may lose Lebanon out of all this.
Professor Rabia Al-Habra, the leading voice in Lebanon's political spectrum, thank you very much for joining us and on your insight regarding the complex and challenging situation. And from Lebanon, we move on to the latest developments in Gaza. Five Palestinians have been killed and others have been injured in the Israeli airstrikes targeting tens of housing displaced people in the Nusayrat camp, central Gaza Strip. Palestinian media reported that Israeli warplanes also targeted several neighborhoods in Gaza City, including Zaytun and Sabra. The Israeli occupation army has committed 2 massacres in northern Gaza's Jabalia, hitting residential buildings housing over 170 civilians. Palestinian media confirmed that at least 84 deaths, including over 50 children, with dozens more missing or injured. Palestinian media outlets have reported that the bodies of 5 Palestinian victims were retrieved from under homes in northern Nusayrat camp after airstrikes targeted homes in the camp in central Gaza. Al-Auda hospital received several victims and injured, while nearby areas were also shelled by artillery. Overnight, Israel continued to demolish residential buildings in northern Nusayrat. Several Palestinians have been killed and injured since dawn as Israeli aircrafts bombed Gaza City and central Gaza. Palestinian medical sources confirmed 3 fatalities from the strikes on the Safatwi neighborhood in northwestern Gaza City. The polio vaccination campaign in Gaza has resumed after facing significant delays due to Israeli bombardments, widespread displacement and restricted access. Originally launched on September 1st, the campaign followed a confirmed case by the World Health Organization in August of a partially paralyzed baby as a result of the type 2 polio virus, the first in Gaza in 25 years. Although a humanitarian pause was agreed upon to facilitate the campaign, WHO and UNICEF report that the area covered by the agreement is now limited to Gaza City, a reduction from the broader coverage granted in September. Residents in the northern Gaza Strip are struggling to deal with a water crisis due to Israel's complete siege of Gaza and its intensifying airstrikes. Access to clean water is severely restricted, with many residents relying on truck deliveries that now occur every 4 days. Additionally, distillation factories, a vital water supply in Gaza, have been forced to shut down due to power outages caused by Israel's blockade. In the occupied West Bank, the Israeli occupation army has stormed Bethlehem and Nablus. This morning, the army raided a village southwest of Bethlehem, searched homes and set up security checkpoints. Israeli special forces also raided the Balata camp in Nablus, conducting arrests. Senior UN officials have warned of a catastrophic situation in northern Gaza. A statement signed by leaders from UNICEF, the World Food Programme, and other aid agencies warned that all Palestinians in northern Gaza face imminent death from disease, starvation and violence. The statement emphasized that humanitarian aid falls short due to Israeli access restrictions. Joining us today is Mr. Kamel Hamid, a prominent Palestinian political analyst based in Bethlehem. Mr. Hamid, thank you for joining us. Now, with the reported increase in the Israeli airstrikes, particularly targeting civilian areas, how are residents of Gaza coping with the immediate threat to their lives and homes?
Good evening, and thank you for hosting us. No doubt that what's happening in North Gaza and in Gaza at all, and also in West Bank, south of Lebanon, something unprecedented things. So when we are talking about this war, about this genocide after 390 days from the last October the 7th until this moment. The people there obliged, as you know, to move from place to place and displacement, discharge, Gaza, all these sacrifices and loss that happening in Gaza for the Palestinians are something incredible and unbelievable at the same time.
So now, hospitals and emergency responders in Gaza are facing immense challenges. So can you describe the current state of the medical facilities and the primary obstacles to providing adequate care, at least?
So you know, the Palestinians in the first Intifada in 1987 faced these crimes from the Israelis, and they know well how to manage in a very difficult and unexpected times to face the patient, the sick, the injured people, and how to save them inside the houses, clinics, hospitals. We know all hospitals now at Gaza was out of service. Most of them were destroyed by the Israeli machines and planes. At the same time, the people and the nurses, the doctors, and the people in the streets, all the people decide to help the people, to save them, to treat them in a very old, in very traditional things. We know this is very dangerous, and this is not normal in these days, but we know that the Palestinians can manage with this horrible wars and a very large number of injured people and dead persons in the streets, and people and childs, and also women and men. But at the same time, what's going on is very difficult, complicated situation. Most of the injured people facing a very danger moment. Most of them will suffer a lot, but at the same time, they are living in a war, unprecedented war. But they are living in a very legendary resilience, miraculous distancelessness in Gaza. They are waiting. They are trying all their effort to help the people, to help the people who under the damaged houses and buildings, and to transfer them and to move them from place to place so as to save them and to give them some water or some treatments, cure them as possible as they can.
Well, the UN described conditions in Gaza as, and they used the term apocalyptic. Now, from your vantage point, sir, what are the most urgent needs for the civilians? How can the international community best respond?
Israeli state and the arms announced also that the UN and all the clinics and international let me say, institutions, even including the hospitals and the clinics, are illegal, and they destroyed their buildings, and they attack the schools, attack every place. They destroyed everything. But I think the international community should do the best to help the people there, and also to stop this war, and to has a pressure against the Israeli armies and government to stop this war and to help the people there. We know that it is difficult for them to work in such a war, but I think they had to do that as soon as possible to save the lives there in Gaza Strip, in North, especially in North Gaza, and all in areas in Gaza. But at least the international institutions, especially the UN institutions, now facing a very horrible situation there, and the Israeli ones try to destroy all their vehicles, their buildings, their palaces, or anything they can do to help the people there.
Well, given the severe restrictions on movement and resources, how are the displaced individuals and families in Gaza finding shelter and basic necessities? Can you give us a closer look on how they're managing and maneuvering around these challenges for their day-to-day activities?
The people, as we know, the people try to save the kids and to save themselves, to transfer from place to place, because they all the time the Israeli arms did not give them any time, any chance to take any chance to take a rest or to move from place to place. We know what is happening there in Gaza is unprecedented, as we know, and nobody expects such a war in Gaza, and the people, about 2,200,000 people there, try to get water, try to get rest, to try to protect themselves from the Israeli attacks from air, from sea, and from all ways. So the situation is not, as we know, allow them to give them such comfortable situation to help the people or to help even themselves. I think this Israeli policy to kill the people and to have a very good situation for them. So this genocide and confrontation, this is the discharge of the buildings, of the places, to move them from north to south, from north to middle, from middle to south, and all the time along more than 390 days. They didn't see any minute of rest or comfortable time to do things. The shortage of news and the real situation, what's going on in Gaza, it's not clear for everybody and also for us, because they try to kill all the people who try to say the truth on the ground or to explain what is going on in Gaza. They surrounding Gaza, they destroyed everything, and also they kill anybody who can move from place to place or even to try to help anybody in the streets or from building to building or from place to place.
Mr. Hamid, now there are concerns that the calls for a ceasefire appear to have stalled. Now, in your opinion, what are the primary barriers or challenges to achieving an immediate and a lasting ceasefire?
I think they try to talk about the ceasefire all the time, just to give a message for the international community that the Israeli government is ready for ceasefire. But in truth, and in this long time from this war, we know that Israel will not give a chance for any kind or chance for ceasefire. From my point of view, there will not be any a long time for a ceasefire. The Israeli will continue until they complete their strategic goals in Gaza. The first goal of them is to discharge Gaza, to displace the people, and also to kill as much as they can from the people there, and to return Gaza to the historical place without any kind of life. They will not give them any chance of life or hope of life in Gaza. This is a policy of the Israeli government. This is a policy of the occupation. I think this is the last war in the Middle East and in the struggle, Palestinian-Israeli struggle, and the Arab-Israeli struggle all the time. So Netanyahu and his government and his army, they try to finish everything before any kind of ceasefire. Maybe they will have some days for a ceasefire, but I think the Israeli will continue their war until they finish all the strategic goal that Netanyahu and his government announced at the beginning of this war.
Then is there any hope for any international influence on the Israeli side to try and mitigate the destruction and damage that is being caused in Gaza?
I think they choose, I think Netanyahu and his government know that this is a chance for them to destroy and to kill and to achieve their goals, especially they now, as you know, the American election. The few days from the election American, and after that, I think it will be the most danger for the Palestinians people in Gaza and for this war. They try to finish everything before the election and the impact election in America, whatever the result of this election. But I think they consider it as a big chance for them to achieve their goals and to finish this war before the end of this year, so as to to prevent and to stop any process or any negotiation in this time. And we know that this war, the first goal of this war is to destroy the Palestinian state. Netanyahu, this government, announced many times they will not allow any chance or hope to have a Palestinian independent state and to have a solution or two-state solution in the situation. So I think they want to continue their goals and their aims by the end of this year. In other words, they want to win these days or weeks until the end of the American election. And at the same time, the international community, I think, will not do many things because most of the states, the big states in Europe, in other words, they announced many times that Israel has to defend themselves. So they consider what's going in Palestine is not a fair war for the Palestinians, of course. So we will not have any hope about the finishing this war until the Netanyahu and his government finished all the strategic goals that they announced at the beginning of this war.
So there were hopes that the Biden administration would be able to influence Israel to reach a ceasefire as before the US elections as a final achievement before a new president takes charge. Now, do you see this as a realistic possibility?
I think the White House and the American administrations try all the time to stand beside Israel and to give them a big chance to achieve their goals and to finish this war by the way the Israelis wanted and announced about that. So the Palestinians will continue their presidency in this land. They will continue preserve themselves on this land and to continue this struggle until they achieve our aims, our goals to have our independent state. We will not leave this country, will not leave this land. I think this land is our land, and the Palestinians know that. The Palestinians in Gaza and in West Bank, in Jerusalem, and all over the world know well that there is no any chance for them except to stay and to be on this land, to protect themselves as possible as they can, and this struggle will continue to achieve these goals for us as a Palestinians.
Mr. Kamel Hamid, the prominent Palestinian political analyst from Bethlehem, thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our special coverage for now. But please don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. And for real-time updates, connect with us on the UMS digital platform. Watch it. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.